Welcome back to Mia Horror Stories. Tonight's tale, the neighbor who never blinks, is best experienced in the dark, which is why the screen will stay black. No distractions, no flashing images, just you, your imagination, and the story. So sit back, relax, and listen all the way to the end, if you dare. The first time I noticed it, I tried to explain it away with something dumb and ordinary. A contact lens stuck, dry eyes, some kind of tic, because it was 9:17 p.m. and I was carrying 2 grocery bags that were cutting into my fingers. And the hallway smelled like someone's overcooked broccoli mixed with old carpet shampoo. And the last thing I wanted was a new mystery in a building that already had thin walls and a male thief. He was standing in the doorway across from mine, Unit 3B, half in shadow, half in the yellow spill of the corridor light. Not blocking the hall exactly, but close enough that I had to angle my shoulder around the corner to get to my lock. He didn't blink. Not once. Not even that little flutter people do when they're trying to remember something. Just a steady, flat look that held on like a sticker you can't peel off cleanly. I fumbled my key and made a joke, because that's what I do when I don't know what to do. "Hey," I said, shifting the bags. A can clinked against glass. "You're gonna dry your eyes out doing that." He didn't smile, but his mouth moved like he was considering it, a tiny adjustment at the corners. His pupils looked normal. His face looked normal. He had the kind of plain features you forget the moment you look away. Brown hair, no beard, a hoodie zipped up to his throat like it was cold in here. "Sorry," he said, and his voice was quiet, not creepy quiet, just like he didn't want to take up space. "Didn't mean to startle you." He was still not blinking. "Didn't startle me," I lied, because my keys were slipping, and the plastic handles of the grocery bags were biting deeper. And if I acknowledged the wrongness of it out loud, it would become a whole thing. "New here." He nodded once. His gaze didn't drift to my bags, didn't flick to the peephole camera above my door like most people's would. He kept looking at my face in a way that made me suddenly aware of my own eyes, how they blinked without permission. "Couple days," he said. "I'm Daniel." "Alex," I said, and then my lock finally turned. The door swung inward on its tired hinge with that familiar groan. My apartment smelled like the candle I'd left burning on the counter, cedar and smoke mixed with last night's takeout. It was comforting, embarrassingly so, like the place was glad I'd come back. I stepped inside, and because I'm not a monster, I held the door for him to pass, even though he wasn't walking anywhere. "Welcome to the glamorous life of Maple Street," I said. He paused as if he might answer, then said, "Thanks," and that was it. Still no blink. I let the door close and stood with my back pressed against it for a second, breathing through my nose, listening. The hallway had its usual noises. The elevator cable whining somewhere deep in the building, a neighbor's TV leaking muffled laughter, the soft thump of footsteps on the stairs. Nothing dramatic. Nothing that matched the weird little pinprick sensation behind my ribs. I set the bags down on the kitchen floor, rolled my shoulders to make the ache fade. My phone buzzed on the counter with a text. Mara, you alive, or did you perish under the weight of organic kale? I snorted, grateful for the normalness of her tone. Me barely, send help. A second later, my screen lit up with her face in a video call. All blonde bun and mascara smudge. Her background the same brick wall she'd been painting white for a week in her condo on the other side of town. You look like you fought someone in the produce aisle, she said. Someone looked at me like they wanted my social security number, I replied, peeling the plastic handles off my fingers. New neighbor. Mara's eyebrows lifted. Cute new neighbor or murder new neighbor. That escalated. You're the one who moved into a building where the stairs creak like a horror soundtrack, she said, chewing on a pen cap. Tell me everything. I glanced toward my front door like Daniel could hear through it. The walls here were thin enough that I once heard a couple argue about a missing sock for 15 minutes. He doesn't blink, I said. Mara froze, pen cap halfway to her mouth. What do you mean, doesn't blink? I mean, I made eye contact long enough to unlock my door, and he didn't blink once. That's not possible. Okay, it's possible. It's just uncomfortable. She leaned closer to her camera, the phone catching the top edge of her kitchen light. Maybe he has contacts. Or, like, he's practicing for a starring contest. Or he's one of those people who thinks blinking is weakness. Mara, what? I'm trying to help. I'm not asking for help, I said, opening the fridge. The cold air brushed my face. I'm asking for you to validate that it's weird. It's weird, she said promptly, then softened. But not dangerous weird, probably. Probably, I echoed, and the word didn't sit right. My name is Alex Benton, and I'm the kind of person who can talk myself into and out of anything as long as I don't have to sit still with the feeling in my gut. I'm 32, and I moved to this neighborhood in Chicago because it was close enough to my job downtown and far enough from my ex's favorite bars that I wouldn't have to do that awkward dance of pretending not to see each other across a crowded room. It was supposed to be a reset. Smaller, quieter, unremarkable. I'd taken the lease in a hurry, signed forms on my phone in a rideshare, told myself that the building's scuffed hallway and unreliable buzzer were character. My private flaw, if you want to call it that, if you want to dress it up with a nicer word, is that I notice patterns, and then I can't stop noticing them. A sound in the wall becomes a list of possibilities. A neighbor's routine becomes a timeline. I've always been like that. As a kid, I used to count the seconds between my dad's footsteps and the front door opening so I could predict what kind of mood would walk in with him. It's exhausting. It's also how I keep myself feeling like I have some control. Mara was still watching me. She knows me well enough to read the little tells, my voice going too casual, my eyes cutting to the door. So, she said lightly, have you done your usual thing where you Google him and then feel guilty about it? I haven't Googled him, I said, because I hadn't. Yet. The building's radiator clicked as it warmed, a metallic pop that made me flinch anyway. I forced myself to keep moving, putting groceries away, lining cans in the cabinet. Normal tasks, safe tasks. My phone buzzed again. Not a text this time, but the building's group chat. Someone had made it on a free app after the mail theft started, and it was mostly used for passive-aggressive notes about recycling. Maple 12 tenants. Anyone else missing packages today? Saw a guy in a gray hoodie near the mailboxes around 4. I paused with a jar of pasta sauce in my hand. Gray hoodie. I heard Mara say, Alex. Nothing, I said too fast. Just building chat. What's up? I stared at the jar label, the tiny tomatoes printed on glass, and felt the air in the kitchen shift, not colder, not warmer, just different. Like when you realize you've been holding your breath without meaning to. I think my neighbor was wearing a gray hoodie, I said. Mara's eyes widened in that way she has when she's trying not to scare herself. Okay, lots of people own gray hoodies. Right, and you didn't actually see him near the mailboxes. No, then don't do that thing where your brain grabs a coincidence and builds a whole crime documentary. I wanted to laugh because she was right, and because the humor was the only way to keep my chest from tightening. Fine, I said, I won't. I carried my phone closer to the door, lowering my voice like the door could eavesdrop. But he really didn't blink, Mara. She made a face. Ask him if he needs eye drops. Great plan. Hi, Daniel. Welcome to Maple Street. Do you have a medical condition? Okay, don't do that, she admitted. Maybe just be polite. Observe, like a normal person. Observe, that was the problem. Observing is my specialty. After we hung up, I washed my hands and stood at the peephole without thinking, one palm on the cool metal of the deadbolt. I didn't open it. I just looked out. The hall was empty, but as I watched, a faint sound came from across the way. A soft scrape, like furniture shifting, followed by a brief, delicate tap, tap, tap that could have been someone setting something down carefully. Then, for a moment, the corridor light flickered just a stutter, a hiccup, and steadied again. The building was old. The wiring was old. Everything here had little problems that weren't emergencies until they suddenly were. I stepped back from the door, heart doing that annoying sprint it does for no reason. I told myself I was hungry. I was tired. I was primed to be weirded out because Mara had said the word murder. I walked to my couch, sat, and opened my laptop to distract myself. The screen glow washing my living room in pale light. My cursor hovered over the browser. I could type Daniel 3, B Maple 12, and see what came up: public records, social media, the same slippery slope everyone swears they don't go down. Or I could do the same thing and leave it alone. I heard another sound from the hall, closer this time, like a slow footstep that stopped right outside my door. Not a knock, not the rattle of keys, just someone standing there. I held my breath without meaning to, fingers poised above my keyboard, and I had a choice. Call out through the door like a normal neighbor, open it and be friendly, or stay quiet and pretend I wasn't home, letting the moment pass and letting the unanswered questions settle deeper. I didn't move. Not yet. The knock came again, sharper this time. The sound of knuckles on wood carrying through my apartment like a dropped plate. Alex, a voice said, low but urgent. Hey, it's Daniel. We need to talk. My first instinct, automatic, rehearsed, was to stay still. Let it pass. Let the hallway swallow the moment. That instinct had kept me safe more than once, or at least convinced me it had. But then the fire alarm went off. Not the full building siren. Just the shrill, localized scream from somewhere close. The kind that drills straight into your jaw and rattles your teeth. My smoke detector answered a second later, a thinner echo layered on top. I yanked the door open. Daniel stood there with a phone in his hand, the screen lighting his face from below. His eyes were wide, focused, still unblinking. "There's smoke," he said. "I think it's coming from the basement." The hallway smelled different now, sharp, electrical, like hot plastic. Under it, something darker. Burning dust. My pulse spiked, the familiar fizz under my skin that meant my brain was already running scenarios ahead of my body. "Did you call 911? I asked. "I'm trying," he said, holding up the phone. "No signal. Building Wi-Fi's down too." Right on cue, the hallway lights cut out. Not fully, just enough that the bulbs dropped to a dim orange emergency glow, shadows stretching and bending along the walls. Somewhere below us, a door slammed. Someone shouted, the words swallowed by the alarm. "This building," I muttered, grabbing my keys without thinking. "Alex," Daniel said, and for the first time, his gaze flicked, just briefly, to the stairwell door at the end of the hall. "We shouldn't go down there. People live down there," I said, even as my stomach twisted. Laundry room, storage cages, the gas meters. If there's a fire. "I know," he said. His voice stayed steady, but his fingers tightened around his phone. "But the alarm panel is in the basement. If it's a false alarm or an electrical thing, it might be tripping the detectors. A procedural failure," my brain supplied helpfully. "Old wiring. Overloaded circuit." The flicker earlier replayed in my mind like a bookmarked clip. From the stairs came the sound of coughing. A woman's voice, panicked. That decided it. We took the stairs 2 at a time, the concrete cool and damp under my palms as I skimmed the railing. The air thickened with each step down, my throat itching. My mind started counting without asking steps, breaths, exits. 1 flight. 2. On the landing between floors, we almost ran into Mrs. Kowalski from 2A, clutching her cardigan over her mouth, eyes watering. "Smoke," she wheezed. "It's getting worse." "Go up," I said, steering her past us. "Get outside." She nodded and moved, shoes scuffing, the alarm still screaming overhead. By the time we reached the basement door, the smell was undeniable. Acrid, hot. The metal handle was warm under my fingers. Daniel touched my arm. "Alex." I looked at him. Sweat beaded at his hairline. His pupils were blown wide in the low light. He still hadn't blinked. "If there's a gas leak," he started. "I know," I said, and pushed the door open anyway. The basement was chaos in miniature. Smoke curled near the ceiling, drifting in lazy gray ribbons. The fire alarm panel on the far wall flashed red, a stuttering heartbeat. Someone had left a laundry cart tipped on its side, clothes spilling like a body. The source was obvious once I saw it. An electrical outlet near the storage cages, blackened and sparking weakly. An extension cord melted into a glossy puddle on the floor. No open flame. Yet, a man I didn't recognize, early 20s, shaking hands, was standing there with a plastic bucket, sloshing water toward the outlet. "Stop," Daniel shouted. The water hit anyway. Sparks leapt. The lights flickered again, then died completely, plunging the room into emergency red. The alarm changed pitch, higher, angrier. "Jesus," I breathed. My chest felt tight, air shallow. Too many inputs. My flaw, right on cue. The need to catalog everything, to predict the outcome before it happened. "Circuit breaker," Daniel said. "We need to cut power." "Where?" I asked. He hesitated, just a fraction of a second. Then, storage room, back wall. "How do you know that?" Another hesitation. "I asked the super when I moved in." "Of course you did," my brain said, unhelpfully. We moved together, ducking low. My phone buzzed uselessly in my pocket, no service. The breaker box was behind a rusted cage door, padlocked. "Of course," I said. "Why wouldn't it be?" The young guy with the bucket backed away, eyes wild. "Is it gonna blow?" "Go upstairs," I said, "now." He ran. Daniel tested the padlock, then the hinge. "I can force it." "Can you?" I asked, and immediately hated the edge of my voice. He met my eyes. For a split second, finally, he blinked. "Yes," he said, and braced himself. Metal screeched as he wrenched the hinge, the sound setting my teeth on edge. The cage gave way with a clang, the padlock skittering across the floor. He reached inside and flipped breakers, one by one. The sparking outlet went dark. The alarm didn't stop. "Why isn't it stopping?" I said, panic sharpening my words. "If the power's off." "Battery backup," he said. "We need to reset the panel." A new sound cut through the din. Footsteps on the stairs, heavier this time. A man's voice barked orders. Someone else was crying. Then another problem announced itself, quieter but more dangerous. A hissing, like air leaking from a tire. Daniel's head snapped toward the gas meters along the wall. "Oh no," he said. My stomach dropped. Gas. The word tasted like pennies. "Everyone out," he shouted, louder than I'd heard him yet. The hissing grew louder. My phone buzzed again. Suddenly, a single bar of service flickering to life. A text from Mara popped up on my screen, absurdly normal. "Mara, fire trucks just past my place headed your way. You okay?" Before I could answer, the basement door slammed shut above us. Not the soft swing of a door caught by a draft. A deliberate slam. The handle rattled. Daniel and I stared at the stairs. "Did someone?" I started. The hissing intensified. The alarm kept screaming. "We're locked in," Daniel said, and there was no room for doubt in his voice. Somewhere above us, footsteps retreated. My brain started counting again. Seconds, oxygen, exits. But the numbers slipped, wouldn't line up. My flaw turned on me, the pattern seeking spiraling into panic. Daniel grabbed my arm, grounding solid. "Alex, look at me." I did. His eyes were steady now, blinking normally, like nothing about him had ever been strange at all. There's a secondary exit, he said, through the storage cages, but it's tight, and we have maybe a minute before this gets bad. A minute, I echoed. The hissing rose to a shriek. Why would someone lock us in? I asked, the question tearing out of me. Daniel didn't answer. He just pulled me toward the dark, between the cages, where the air was thick and the path uncertain. Behind us, something sparked again, and above us, sirens wailed close enough to hear, too far to help. The storage cages formed a narrow maze, wire walls rattling as we shoved past, the emergency lights bleeding everything into shades of rust and shadow. My shoulder clipped metal and sent a sharp spark of pain down my arm. I hissed and kept moving. Left, Daniel said, then right. There's a service corridor. How sure are you? I asked, breath already turning shallow. Enough, he said, keep low. The hissing followed us, not louder exactly, but closer, like it had learned our pace and matched it. My chest burned. The air tasted wrong, metallic, and dry, and my tongue felt thick in my mouth. We reached the end of the cages and turned into a concrete corridor barely wide enough for two people. Exposed pipes ran along the ceiling, wrapped in yellowing insulation. A single emergency light flickered at the far end, buzzing like a trapped insect. Door should be at the end, Daniel said. Leads to the alley. Should, the word stuck with me. Halfway down the corridor, my foot slid. I windmilled, caught myself against the wall, and felt something wet soak into my palm. Careful, Daniel said, grabbing my elbow. I looked down. The floor was slick with a dark puddle that reflected the red light. My brain jumped straight to the worst place. Is that, I started. Oil, Daniel said quickly, crouching. He rubbed his fingers together, sniffed, from the boiler. Old buildings leak. Relief came late and incomplete, my pulse still racing. A misfire, I told myself. Get a grip. We reached the end of the corridor and found the door. It was chained shut. The chain was thick, looped through the handle, and a wall-mounted eye bolt, secured with a heavy padlock that looked newer than anything else down here. You've got to be kidding me, I said. Daniel pulled once, hard. The chain held. He tried the padlock, then leaned his forehead briefly against the door, breathing through his nose. Okay, he said, okay. That's attempt 1, I said, my voice cracking despite my effort to keep it light. What's attempt 2? He looked around, eyes scanning, blinked again. Normal now, too normal. There's a vent, he said, back near the meters. It connects to the trash room. If we can pry it open. The hissing spiked, as if offended by the delay. We retraced our steps, slower now. My legs felt heavy, coordination slipping. Sweat soaked the collar of my shirt, chilled by the bad air. Somewhere above us, muffled through layers of concrete, a siren dopplered past. Help's close, I said, mostly to myself. Close doesn't matter if we're sealed in, Daniel replied. At the gas meters, the sound was loud enough to vibrate my teeth. One of the pipes shuddered, a thin seam spraying invisible danger into the room. Daniel stripped off his hoodie and wrapped it around his hand, then reached for the valve. Don't, I said, if you spark. I know, he said, I know. He turned it slowly, The hissing dropped a notch. Not gone. Better. That buys us time, he said. His face was pale now, sweat streaking through dust. The vent was a rectangular grate bolted into the wall, rusted screws biting deep. Daniel braced and pulled. The metal shrieked and bent, then popped free with a clang that echoed too loudly. Behind it, darkness and the sour stink of trash. "I'll go first," he said. "Of course you will," I muttered, but I didn't argue. He boosted himself up, shoulders scraping. The vent shaft was narrow, just wide enough to crawl. He disappeared feet first, shoes scuffing metal. "Okay," his voice came back, distorted. "It opens into the trash room. Door on the other side." "Is it locked?" I asked. A pause. "Yes." My laugh came out brittle. "You're killing me." "I can hear people," he added. "Muffled, they're close." That did something dangerous to my hope. I grabbed the edge of the vent and hauled myself up. My arms trembled. Halfway through, my foot slipped, and I banged my shin hard enough to see stars. I bit down on a yell, tasting blood. In the shaft, the air was worse, hotter, stagnant. I crawled, elbows screaming, my breath loud in my ears. At the end, Daniel dropped down into the trash room and reached up to help me. I fell the last foot awkwardly, ankle twisting. "Shit," I said, leaning on him. "Can you stand?" he asked. Define stand. The trash room was lit by a single bare bulb swinging gently, casting long shadows over dumpsters and bags piled too high. The door was metal, industrial, with a push bar on this side and a keypad on the other. Daniel tried the push bar anyway. Nothing. He turned to me. "You have your phone." I nodded, pulled it out with shaking hands. One bar of service flickered. "Call 911, he said. "Now." I did. The line rang once, twice, then connected. 911. "What's your emergency?" "We're trapped in the basement of Maple 12 on Maple Street," I said, words tumbling. "There's a gas leak. Someone locked the exits." "I have units on scene," the operator said. "Stay where you are. Help is coming." Relief crashed through me so hard my knees buckled. Daniel caught me, easing me down against a dumpster. Then the bulb above us popped. Darkness swallowed the room. The smell intensified. Somewhere nearby, something heavy shifted. "Daniel," I said. "I'm here," he said close. "Stay still." In the dark, a shape loomed tall, sudden. My heart slammed. Footsteps, breathing. "Hey," a voice shouted. "Who's in here?" A flashlight beam snapped on, blinding. "Maintenance," the man said, irritated, lowering the light. "Jesus, you scared me." Building evacuation. The terror drained fast, leaving me shaky and furious. "Why was the door locked?" Daniel demanded. The man frowned. "Because procedure says secure trash room during gas events. Keeps people from panicking." "People are trapped," I said. He swore under his breath and fumbled with keys. The door swung open, fresh air rushing in like a physical thing. Sirens wailed just outside. As we moved toward the exit, my ankle gave out completely. Pain flared, hot and immediate. Daniel and the maintenance guy hauled me up between them. Outside, flashing lights painted the alley red and blue. Firefighters moved with purpose, masks on, hoses snaking. I thought it was over. Then one of the firefighters shouted, "Secondary valve compromised. Pressure's building." The maintenance guy's face went white. "That's under the storage cages, under the path we'd taken." The building shuddered a deep, unsettling groan, and debris rained down behind us, sealing the vent entrance with a crash. Daniel looked back, then at me. "That was our last way out," he said quietly, and I realized, with a sinking certainty, that whatever had locked us in before hadn't needed to anymore. The firefighters moved fast, but not fast enough to make it feel safe. "Everyone back," one of them shouted, her voice clipped through the mask. "Gas levels are rising." Daniel tightened his grip under my arm as they ushered us toward the mouth of the alley. My ankle screamed with every step, a wet, nauseating pain that made my vision pulse. I could hear it now under the sirens, under the radios, the low, steady hiss from somewhere inside the building, like the place itself was breathing wrong. "Wait," Daniel said suddenly. The firefighter nearest us turned. "Sir, you need to keep moving." "The secondary valve," Daniel said, "under the storage cages. If pressure's building there, shutting the main won't be enough." She stared at him. "How do you know that?" "Because I asked," he said. "When I moved in, the super told me the basement was retrofitted in sections. The old line dead ends under the cages." The firefighter hesitated, then spoke into her radio, rapid and technical. Another voice crackled back, urgent. She swore, "He's right." My stomach dropped. I looked at Daniel, really looked at him. His face was drawn now, fear finally breaking through the composure. He met my eyes and didn't look away. "There's no access," she said. "That area's unstable." "There was a crawl gap," Daniel said. "Behind cage D it's tight." The firefighter shook her head. "We're not sending anyone in there." Daniel's jaw clenched. Then the building goes up. The alley fell into a strange pocket of quiet, like everyone was holding the same breath. I could hear my own pulse, loud and irregular. "I can show you," Daniel said. "I can get there." "Absolutely not," she said. "You're a civilian." "I live here," he snapped. "So does he," he nodded at me. I laughed, sharp and ugly. "I'm not going anywhere." Daniel turned to me. "Alex, I can't even walk," I said, "but I can crawl. And if this thing blows while we're standing out here arguing, that's it." The firefighter's eyes flicked between us. She made a decision, and I saw the weight of it settle on her shoulders. 2 minutes, she said, in and out. You follow my guy, you don't deviate. If anything shifts, you abort. Understood? Daniel nodded. I nodded, then immediately regretted it as pain shot through my ankle. They fitted us with masks, the rubber biting into my skin, the air inside stale and plasticky. We went back in through a side entrance the firefighters had forced open, the building groaning around us like it resented the intrusion. The basement looked worse now. Smoke hung thicker, swirling low. The emergency lights flickered, then steadied, casting everything in a sickly red. Debris littered the floor, chunks of concrete, twisted wire. Cage D, the firefighter said, pointing. We moved, slow, careful. Every sound felt amplified, my ragged breathing, the crunch of grit under boots, the distant, relentless hiss. Behind the cages, there it was, a narrow gap where the wall didn't quite meet the floor, hidden by shelving, barely wide enough for a person to squeeze through. The firefighter crouched, shining his light. "I'll go." The floor shifted under him as he did. A soft, ominous crack. "Stop," Daniel said. Too late. The shelving shuddered, then collapsed inward with a metallic scream, blocking the gap in a tangle of wire and rusted steel. The firefighter cursed, "Exit now." The hissing spiked, high and violent. Something banged deep in the walls, like a fist pounding from the inside. "There's another way," Daniel said. "The meter crawl. It loops." The firefighter stared at him. That route was sealed. "Not completely," Daniel said. "I checked." "You checked," I said, breathless. The words weren't accusation, just realization. He glanced at me, blinked. "I like to know my exits." The building lurched. Dust rained down. Somewhere above us, glass shattered. The firefighter made a call. "You have 30 seconds, she said. "That's it." We didn't argue. The crawl space was worse than I remembered, lower, tighter, the air hot and thin. I went first because my ankle wouldn't bear weight anyway. I dragged myself forward on my elbows, the concrete scraping skin raw. Panic clawed at my throat as the space narrowed, the ceiling pressing close enough that I could feel it with every breath. Behind me, Daniel kept pace, his breathing steady in my ear. "Don't stop," he said. "You're doing good." I wanted to laugh at that. I wanted to scream. The hiss was deafening now. I could feel it in my bones. Ahead, a faint glint metal. The old valve, crusted with corrosion, the handle half melted. "There," I said, voice shaking. Daniel surged past me despite the space, wedging himself in front of the valve. He wrapped his hoodie, still looped around his arm, over his hand, and grabbed the handle. "On 3, he said. "If it sticks, we force it together." "1, I said. The building groaned again, louder this time. A deep, structural sound that made my stomach flip. 2, I thought absurdly of my dad's footsteps, of counting, of thinking you could predict the worst if you were just vigilant enough. 3, we pulled. The valve screamed in protest, metal shrieking against metal. Daniel grunted, muscles straining. My shoulder flared with pain as I added what little leverage I could. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the handle moved. The hiss dropped to a whisper, then to silence. The quiet that followed wasn't peaceful. It was stunned. "Go," Daniel said, already backing up. "Now." We crawled, scrambled. The crawl space behind us shuddered, then partially collapsed, sealing itself with a final, decisive crash. Firefighters dragged us the rest of the way, hands firm, practiced. Fresh air hit me like a slap. I ripped the mask off and gagged, lungs burning. Outside, the building stood wounded, but intact, smoke bleeding from its lower vents. Firefighters swarmed, controlled, methodical. I lay on the cold pavement, staring up at the night sky, lights blurring. Daniel sat beside me, his hoodie shredded, his hands shaking now that there was nothing left to do. Sirens faded to a background hum. "You could have died," I said finally. He nodded. So could you. I turned my head, ankle throbbing. Skin scraped and bruised, the cost settling into me. You knew the building too well, I said quietly. He didn't deny it. I had a reason. I waited, but he didn't elaborate. His eyes flicked back to the building, to the darkened windows. For the first time since I'd met him, he looked tired, worn down, human in a way that scared me more than the unblinking ever had. The danger was over. The feeling was, they took me to Northwestern in an ambulance that smelled like disinfectant and rubber gloves, the siren off, lights still on out of habit. My ankle wasn't broken, bad sprain, possible ligament tear. But it ballooned anyway, purple and yellow blooming under the skin like a time-lapse bruise. They wrapped it, iced it, gave me crutches and a paper cup of pills that tasted chalky and left my mouth dry. I kept asking the same questions, circling them like loose teeth. Did anyone get hurt? How bad was the building? Was it safe to go back? A nurse with a tired smile told me the answers gently, as if volume mattered. No fatalities. A couple of people treated for smoke inhalation. The building would be closed for inspections for a few days. Structural engineers, gas company, city permits. All the words that make danger feel bureaucratic. Daniel wasn't in the room when I woke from a doze. He hadn't ridden with me. A firefighter told me he'd refused transport, sat on the curb with his head in his hands until someone handed him water. I pictured him there, hoodie shredded, blinking normally now, and felt something complicated loosen in my chest. Mara showed up just after midnight, hair still in a bun, jacket thrown over paint-splattered jeans. She hugged me carefully, then immediately scolded me for being reckless and brave in the same breath. "You're not allowed to do that again," she said, gesturing vaguely at my leg. The hospital, the idea of heroics. Whatever that was. "I didn't plan it," I said. She snorted. "No one ever does." She drove me to her place because the building was sealed and because I didn't want to sleep alone. On the way, the city looked exactly like it always did, late-night buses sighing at stops, a couple arguing on a corner, a man walking a dog too small for the cold. Ordinary life resumed with impressive speed. In the morning, a city inspector called to take my statement. He asked about the alarms, the chain on the alley door, the timing. He wrote everything down in a neat hand and nodded in the right places. When I mentioned Daniel's knowledge of the building, the inspector's pen paused. "Did he work here?" he asked. "I don't think so," I said. "He said he talked to the super." The inspector nodded again, neutral. "We'll follow up." They followed up with everyone. The maintenance worker explained procedures. The super explained shortcuts taken years ago, lines rerouted, paperwork lost. The chained door was traced to a previous theft incident. Someone had added the padlock, temporarily, and never removed it. No one admitted to locking the basement during the alarm, but no one could prove they hadn't. The official conclusion arrived by email 2 days later, a PDF with the city seal at the top. An overloaded extension cord caused the initial electrical failure. Heat damaged a nearby gas line already weakened by corrosion. Contributing factors included outdated infrastructure and improper emergency access control. Human error, plural. I read it twice and felt both satisfied and cheated. Daniel texted once, "You okay?" Just that. I stared at the screen longer than necessary before replying. "Healing. You." "Same," he wrote. "Listen, can we talk?" We met a week later at a coffee shop on Damon, neutral territory. He arrived early and stood when he saw me, instinctive politeness. He blinked. A lot. Too much, maybe. Or maybe that was just me counting again. "I'm sorry," he said before I could speak, "for putting you in that position." I shook my head. "You saved the building." He winced. "It shouldn't have been on us." There was a pause, filled by the hiss of the espresso machine and the low murmur of other people's conversations. I noticed small things. The way he held his cup with both hands, knuckles pale. A faint scar along his forearm I hadn't seen before. "You said you had a reason," I said finally, "for knowing the exits." He nodded, eyes dropping to the table. "My sister died in a fire," he said. "Apartment building, 10 years ago. Locked stairwell. Alarms that didn't work." The words sat between us, heavy and simple. "I'm sorry," I said. "So am I," he said. "I promised myself I'd never be trapped like that again." I ask questions. I map places. I know it looks strange. I thought of my own habit, my counting, my need to anticipate. 2 different scars, same shape. "People cope how they cope," I said. He looked up then, searching my face. "You don't think I?" "No," I said, quick and honest. "I don't." We talked about small things after that. Logistics. The building repairs. Where he might stay in the meantime. When we stood to leave, he hesitated. "I'm moving," he said. "Once the lease thing clears." "Oh," I said, surprised by the sting. "Okay." He nodded. "I think it's better." I didn't disagree. When the building reopened, it smelled like fresh paint and bleach. New exit signs glowed an almost aggressive green. The alley door was unlocked, the chain gone. The city posted a notice by the mailboxes listing improvements in bullet points. Life slotted back into place imperfectly. I learned how to use crutches without bruising my palms. I slept through the night most nights. Sometimes, when the radiator clicked, my heart jumped anyway. Daniel's apartment across the hall stayed dark. A for rent sign went up, white and hopeful. Weeks later, a package went missing. Just one. A neighbor complained in the group chat, mild annoyance, not panic. Someone suggested cameras. Someone else made a joke. I stood in the hallway one evening, keys in hand, and looked at the door across from mine. The peephole stared back, blank and unblinking. I unlocked my door and went inside. The candle on the counter smelled like cedar and smoke, comforting, familiar. As I closed the door, I noticed something on the floor of the hall, half hidden by the baseboard. A small piece of black plastic melted at one end, like it had once been part of something larger. An extension cord end, maybe, or nothing. I nudged it with my shoe, then left it there. Some questions don't need answers to keep you awake. They just need a place to sit. And that's the end of today's chilling tale. If you enjoyed this story and want more nights full of suspense, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to Mia Horror Stories, and turn on the bell so you never miss a scare. I've got plenty more stories waiting for you, so stick around and check out the other videos on the channel. Thanks for watching, and until next time, stay safe and don't look behind you.